So, today I want to talk to you about what I'm calling the timeline trap that keeps so many entrepreneurs stuck in states of survival, struggling, and really suffering, like unnecessarily suffering. And this was an incredible and profound perception shift for me personally, and it completely and fundamentally transformed my relationship with life, with money, with my business, and really alleviated me of so much of the anxiety and stress that I was feeling and that was blocking me from moving forward in my business. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are worrying about where the next client is coming from, maybe you are constantly wondering, how am I going to pay my bills? And you're living sort of month to month, maybe even week to week financially, and you find yourself often thinking about, well, what will happen if nothing changes? Going down those sort of scary, spiraling thoughts about the future. Well, if that's you, I want to invite you to consider that your biggest problem is not actually a lack of clients. Your biggest problem is that you are actually, and I'm going to laugh when I say this because it makes me think of the song from Back to the Future by Huey Lewis and the News, but that you've become trapped in time. So hear me out here, bear with me. So time is the nemesis here, or the psychological time. So time is actually the most favorite place where suffering exists and thrives. So, by way of explanation, if you've ever read Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, I strongly recommend you read this if you haven't, or if you have, read it again. I mean, I've read this countless times. You can see it's like covered in notes and post-its. I've even put a plastic cover on it so it doesn't fall apart because this is like my Bible. But Eckhart Tolle talks about how the ego being that part of us that feels separate, that feels isolated, that feels like everything is a threat, that the outside world is hostile. So the ego part of us needs two things to survive. It needs the past and it needs the future. So essentially, the ego is very much a time bound or time based entity or structure. So it cannot exist without the psychological past, and the imagined future. And if you think about it, both of those things, the past and the future, they don't actually exist. They're only kind of thought clouds that memories that we have internalized, or emotions that we've internalized, but as constructs, they don't actually exist. So but the past, the ego gets very identified with the past. Because it gives us our identity. It provides us with an identity because the ego says, look, this is what happened to me. This is what I did. This is why I am the way I am. This is what is wrong with me. And the other reason is the ego then gets all this evidence of why we can't do something, or why we shouldn't move forward or take a leap of faith, and why we're not good enough. So it provides all this evidence, like past flops and failures, that starts to define our decisions around what to do moving forward. So this is the cause of so much of our sort of grievances and resentments and guilt and bitterness and disappointment. So very much the past shapes then how we make decisions in the future, even though it doesn't exist. But the ego loves the past. But other times, and this is why we flip flop between the two, the ego loves the future. The ego gives the future gives the ego a purpose, because then the ego starts to predict, it starts to try and control, starts to say, what if I never sign another client again? What if I lose everything? What if everyone else succeeds and I get left behind? So the ego starts freaking out and causing untold distress, anxiety, worry, all forms of psychological fear. That's survival. But the ego is so attached to it, right? Because as I said, the future provides the ego with a sense of purpose. And that, what I mean by that is then the ego will go into hyperachiever mode or striver mode, say, right, I need to fix this, or I need to become someone, or I need to prevent this from happening. What if? And it kind of gets sort of enlisted in this sense of purpose. So there's so much suffering, so much suffering. But I'm going to invite you to take a breath and really understand that in this exact moment, none of that is happening. You may be sitting in a chair watching this video or taking a stroll with your headphones on, listening. You're breathing, and that anxiety isn't coming from this very moment. You may be feeling it this very moment, but it's not coming from the now. It's coming from the psychological past or the psychological future, the imagined future, neither of which are real. Just, you know, so Eckhart Tolle invites you to come into the now, always come back into the now, become so present. And it's in this present space where we are simultaneously no thing and all that is, in that absolute present moment. So different type of language, but the same truth is how Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches this. So Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, when you go into a really deep state of meditation, if you've ever been in such a deep state of like being so present and so in the moment, your body is completely relaxed, so you transcend. And Dr. Joe talks about it being you transcend the big three: the body, the environment, and time, when you're in that deep state of meditation, because you're completely unconditioned consciousness. There's no thoughts, there's no emotions, like no disruption or disturbance in the body. You're completely just conscious of space, and in that space is where there is no thing, and simultaneously all that is. So we think that space is empty, but it's pure possibility, right? It's that where all of that creativity exists. And so when we quiet the mind and we just really relax into the now, that's when we have access to insight, to intuition, to wisdom. There's so much information we're being bombarded with. We don't need more information. What we need is the wisdom, the intuition, the insights that that we have access to when we are completely in the present moment. And so the thing that makes this tricky, and why the ego hates the present. The ego will talk you out of it. You try and sit down to meditate, and the ego will be like, oh, we need to do this thing, and oh, we should do this thing, and maybe just, we'll come back to it. And it becomes another thing to do, doesn't it? Meditation becomes another thing to do, because the ego can't stand the present moment, can't stand it. Why? Because it's unpredictable. It's uncertain. The present moment is completely uncertain because it's no thing and all that is. So there's uncertainty here, and the ego can't predict or control that, so it can't stand it. So it will do everything to kind of make you feel like, oh, I'm not very comfortable, I'll get up and move, instead of really dropping deeper and deeper into that present moment. So think of it a bit like a snow globe. You shake up the snow globe and the water's all cloudy and you can't see clearly. That's what living in survival is like. It's like your mind is constantly being shaken up between like thoughts of the past and thoughts about the future. But when you finally put that snow globe down and the water becomes clear, you by doing that, you're not actually creating clarity. You're simply allowing the clarity that was always there to reveal itself. And that's what is so powerful about really coming into the present. And even when you're feeling triggered, so when I'm triggered now, and I get that contraction, that charge in my chest or whatever, the mind will then immediately start chiming in, trying to justify and rationalize and explain what's going on in the body. As soon as that happens, it's like, just really bring all of your, well, this is what I do now, bring all of the attention into the body and just be with that emotion, not try and push it down, not wonder what the hell's going on, why is this, not even why is this coming up, what's going on, just understanding that it's seeking to be released. When it comes to the surface, it's because it's seeking to be released. We're so good at and habituated to pushing it down, suppressing it, distracting ourselves. But I would invite you not to do that. As uncomfortable as it is, all that emotion is seeking is to be experienced and released. That emotion is years old, it's historic, and it's just trapped in the body. So every time you get triggered, oh, beautiful, it's an opportunity to come into the present and allow that to just move through you and be dissipated and not get attached to it. The ego wants to attach, but your higher self, doesn't want to attach. So I hope you found this helpful. Please, as always, if you've got comments or questions, I would love to hear from you. If you found this helpful, hit the like button so it can reach more people. And yeah, and if you want more of this support, more of this type of content, I would love you to subscribe to my channel. So have an amazing rest of your day, and thank you again for watching. Bye for now.